Melanie, I understand you have a wonderful story for us. Can you
Thank you. I hope you find it as special as I do, and I really appreciate you guys having me on here. I guess just as a point of reference, I just wanted to let listeners know it was written in August of 2021, so some time has passed, but
Mhm.
it's still a wonderful story, and I'll just dig in.
Okay.
Last week, I was digging through a stack of aging, faded newspaper articles I wrote as a freelancer back in the late 1900s, no, 1990s, excuse me, hoping to find a particular story. I would be old,
Well,
hoping to find a particular.
technically it still counts though, right?
I was looking for a story that I thought would be a good fit for the blog. So, and I landed on this clipping that I hadn't written, but it was snail mailed to me back in 2010, and I had just added it into
Mm,
that pile. It was about an old high school friend named Lissa McKinley, and she and I had been part of a larger group of friends at an all-girl preparatory school. Lissa was cool. She was down to earth,
mhm,
funny, always fun to be around, and she was smart, way smarter than me. She studied epidemiology at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill before eventually becoming a physician at Cleveland's Metro Health, as well as an assistant professor and dean of students at Cleveland Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine. I picked up the article and read it for the first time in years.
mhm,
In September 2010, a columnist named Regina Brett interviewed Lissa for the Cleveland Plain Dealer. Why? Because Lissa was a doctor, an educator, dedicated to improving cancer patient care, as she was herself living with cancer.
mm,
Here is some of that interview. People who live with metastatic cancer live with a different kind of uncertainty. It's a strange place.
mm,
For Dr. Lissa McKinley, cancer is a chronic disease.
mm,
She said, "You aren't dead. You aren't dying today. I'm just living with a chronic illness. It gets better and it gets worse." When she was 35, Lissa was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer. It was 1996 and she was an internist. She did chemo, radiation, reconstruction, and tamoxifen. She lived 10 years cancer free, but lived with that fear that haunts most cancer survivors.
mhm,
Will it return?
mhm,
When? The longer you go cancer free, the more you think you're home free.
mm,
Then one night she rolled over and cracked a rib,
mm.
bone cancer. Now she lives with a different kind of uncertainty. Lissa works as an assistant dean of students at Case Western Reserve, where she is an assistant professor of medicine. She has made it her career to heal others. She cannot heal herself, but cancer is making her a better healer.
Mhm.
As both a patient and a doctor, she teaches students how to be better doctors. You learn so much as a patient that you're never taught as a doctor, she said. One time, she was removing fluid from the swollen knee of a sick man. He told me, "I'm dying, but my life in the last 6 months has been richer than anything I've ever had." "Who do
Wow.
you charge?" She laughed.
Mm,
She won't go so far as to call cancer a gift, but she'll gladly call it a teacher.
mm,
Before she was a patient, she was one of those doctors who didn't really know how to talk to her patients. Now she teaches students to listen to their patients' fears, their struggles, their stories, not just treat their diseases. Her students interview cancer survivors to learn that life can be rich, even if you
mhm,
are dying.
mm.
"I want them to be good at helping someone die or helping someone live," she said. Lissa makes them do a lot of writing about their experience with patients. They learn to listen, value, and remember it.
Mm,
You put stories in your white pocket and just pull them out.
mhm,
The cancer has progressed. She had a bad scan in July and is back in chemo. Most days she has a high quality of life and can do most anything. "How do you continue to have hope?" she asked. "You have to think every day about how you are going to make this a good day and what's important.
mm,
You've got to live where you are."
mm.
And Lissa did live where she was with her illness and made well over 1,000 additional good days before she died at age 53 in November of 2013.
Mm,
So this article made me think. as my mind traveled back to high school, where we certainly had shared some fun memories. I remember jumping around her room singing Bohemian Rhapsody into her hairbrush, traveling with a school group over spring break. There were 16 of us to
Mm,
study biology while exploring the Smoky Mountains and the Keys. And
mm.
I also visited her during her vacation with her family one summer. I fondly remember attending each other's weddings, and there's a funny photo in the piece on the blog that
Yes.
shows the photo of all of us goofing around for the camera back in 1988.
I love
After
it.
that, children and work and distance, because she stayed in Cleveland and I had moved to Chicago,
Hmm.
made our communication less frequent, although we had one great reunion in Canada with many of those same high school friends and our young families. Still, slowly, I became less privy to her medical challenges. Rereading her story brought a mix of feelings from shame that I wasn't in contact more to awe that Lissa made her life's work be about improving the doctor-patient relationship.
Hmm.
In part, her obituary, which was written by her sister, shares her long personal engagement with cancer informed her evolving sense of empathy in medicine and encouraged her to teach and model humanism in patient care, particularly of cancer patients.
Hmm.
She spoke nationally and internationally on these subjects, hoping to create a curriculum reflecting humanism at Case. In 2006, she started a blog, Saving My Life, One Poem at a Time. Isn't that a great
Oh, that's
title?
so good.
She loved poetry. In each post, she would first chronicle any medical updates, and coming from a doctor, they were admiringly specific.
Hmm.
Her mood, her gratitude, personal thoughts, family stories, and then conclude with a poem or poems, which usually connected to her thoughts for the day. And that blog is actually still online, and I'm just
Wow.
going to put it out there. It's Saving Lissa, Lissa .blogspot.com.
Mm.
I began to read through much of her blog. I felt close to her again, forgetting about that embarrassing gap in time. Friendship is like that. She was more up than down. She must have written, How lucky am I, about 50 times, as
Mm.
she understood what she did have a lot of love from her husband and children and friends, a rewarding career before needing to retire, and an enriched life of travel and art and poetry.
Mm.
But do know that she railed too when she saw the system failing.
Mhm.
She wrote one time about not getting through to the cancer center when she had been given a specific phone number to do so.
Mm.
And I'm quoting here.
Yeah.
I know this system inside and out, and it is broken.
Mm.
Good people try really hard to put band-aids over the cracks, but in general, the system does not work so well for the patient. What would the world be like if all patients in need of palliative care were given someone's beeper number to call instead?
Mm.
In all my years as a cancer patient, the only place I really have had repeated trouble is accessing the system. Isn't that silly?
Mm.
This is the place where most people get caught, especially those who don't understand the crazy system. All those fabulous nurses and doctors and others generally want to help more than anything.
Mm.
Problem is, they don't know you are calling and
Mhm.
calling and calling, or
Mm.
banging your ouchy little head against a wall, just
Mm.
trying to ask if you might
Wow.
increase this dose or change that. Another time, she was furious with the inhumanity of an assistant, always yelling, McKinley, when it was her turn for checking in for an appointment. Here's her funny, truthful description. I wish I had the cojones to walk up to the woman who has just screamed, McKinley, and tell her that I will not move from my spot in front of her face until she announces me across the waiting room as Godness of goodness and light. Ah, it just makes me giggle to think about it. She has no idea what her words do. She needs to know. And her preference was to be called Lissa,
Mhm.
Lissa McKinley, or Dr. McKinley.
Mm.
And she did, in fact, tell her that.
Mm.
So the message did get across. I like to think that her curriculum that she developed from her own experiences has rooted in the next generation of doctors. Her life with cancer ended up impacting thousands in the new doctors who move on and spread that compassion and responsibility to have a deeper understanding of each powered patient outward. They move into other cities, they move into other countries, and they
Mhm.
take that message with them.
Right. Right.
It's possible that a sister or father or child of a reader or listener
Mhm.
here today has benefited from her teachings. I love that. And I'm so
Mhm.
impressed with my own friend. And in a strange twist, I rediscovered Lissa's story just a few days ago as I am preparing for my 1 year anniversary this week
Mm.
of my last chemo treatment for stage 3 uterine cancer. I'll officially be cancer free for
Mm.
1 year. I would give anything to converse with her about cancer, blogging, her strength, and really tell her how much she rocked life and her
Mhm.
own death too in knowing when to stop her treatment.
Mm.
And it would also, and I also want to bring up one particular entry with her that I loved.
Mm.
While reading, I learned that she'd been interested in getting a tattoo.
Mm.
She wrote, I have even started thinking again about that tattoo I have always kind of wanted. My kids cringe when the T word comes up, but I'm going to do it. I think a Celtic something is destined to appear somewhere on my body. We shall just have to wait and see. I guess she'd been reading a lot of Yeats poetry
Mm.
and Celtic mythology, and she was planning a trip to Ireland, so
Mm.
this was
Mhm.
on her mind. Sadly, when she asked her oncologist about getting one, the answer was no. In
Mm.
Lissa's words, unfortunately, I waited too long.
Mm.
Here's the thing. I've been thinking about getting a tattoo for a few years now. Before it was about bucking the system, but now it's about something else. I've thought about it, and my choice would be a small feather, maybe two in the act of floating downwards. The inspiration came from the movie Forrest Gump. Remember the slowly floating feather in
Mm.
the opening and closing credits,
Right.
accompanied by that beautiful soundtrack? That random floating on the wind basically represented Gump's life when it landed in such unexpected places.
Mm.
That
Mhm.
connected with me on how our own life events can fall and land in seemingly random ways.
Mhm.
But more than that, it had now become about not waiting too long to do something
Mhm.
that you want to do. I like to believe that Lissa was telling me, do it.
Yes.
And she was reflective regarding that unpredictability of life. Someone was talking the other day about how their life hadn't ended up exactly as they had planned.
Mhm.
I ask you, do our lives ever end up in
Mm.
the way we plan? Is that even what we want?
Right.
I can't imagine that it is. I'm afraid that would wash out so many possibilities, but I'll think about it. For me right now, life is only about being in the possible, and it seems a freeing place of soul swans and stillness and reading and writing
Mm.
and being.
Mm.